Hello and welcome to EBTV's 2020 Mayoral Candidates Forum. I'm Alan Brodman, your moderator for the evening. Tonight, we televise this forum from the East Brunswick Town Council chambers. Members of the local press will be asking questions of the candidates running for mayor of East Brunswick. We are pleased to welcome Maureen Berzok, representing the East Brunswick TAPinto, and Nick Muscavage from the Home News Tribune. Our candidate representing the Republican Party is Jesal Amin. Our candidate representing the Democratic Party is Dr. Brad Cohen. We will begin our program with 3-minute opening statements by each candidate. The order of the opening statements was determined by a random drawing earlier this evening. 2-minute closing statements will be given in the reverse order of the opening statements. After the opening statements, the reporters will alternate, asking questions to both parties. The party's candidates will have 2 minutes to respond to the question. The opposing party candidate will then have 2 minutes to respond. We will alternate so that both parties have equal opportunity for the first response. Let's begin with the opening statements. First up is Jesal Amin.
Good evening. I want to thank the League of Women Voters, EBTV, and say hello to the taxpayers of East Brunswick. My name is Jesal Amin. I've been a resident of East Brunswick for 24 years. I decided to run for mayor to give back to the East Brunswick, a community that allowed my family and I to achieve the American dream. Living in East Brunswick has afforded me a world of successful professionals. Immigrating to this country as 14 years old was not easy, but I credit the community spirit of East Brunswick for helping me achieve the business success and later move up later from convenience stores to gas stations to motels and finally into healthcare. I was able to provide a standard of living for my family that I couldn't even dream of growing up. Both my sons are graduates of East Brunswick High School. I know firsthand how our public school has set them up for a world of success. I strongly believe East Brunswick is a great place to live and raise a family, but a strong mayor with a business background can greatly improve our township. As a small business owner who has built successful businesses, managed payrolls, balanced budgets, I know what it takes to practice fiscal responsibility and make tough decisions to make ends meet. As a mayor, I plan to utilize my professional background to make sure our local government advocates for East Brunswick taxpayers and promote a culture of innovation and opportunity for small businesses. As a leader of Asian American Retailers Association, I represented and advocated for 4,800 small businesses. And as your mayor, I will advocate for the taxpayers and the seniors and the school kids of East Brunswick. The first issue I would like to address as a mayor is redevelopment. My opponent likes to talk about redevelopment, but we have barely broken ground on it. Instead of implementing his redevelopment plan and attracting businesses to East Brunswick, the mayor has attracted lawsuits from the developers, from the property owners, and it is the residents of East Brunswick who will ultimately pay the cost of mayor's incompetence. Mayor has a lot to answer to the East Brunswick taxpayers and the residents. This is the company, I want you to look at it very carefully, that the mayor hired as a redeveloping agents. On there, it says redeveloper of urban properties. Mayor, I don't think most of the taxpayers and residents of East Brunswick will agree with you that East Brunswick is an urban town. It's a suburban town.
Thank you. Dr. Bradley Cohen.
I too would like to thank EBTV and the media for being here today. When I graduated from medical school many years ago, I took an ancient oath that says that as a doctor, I have an obligation to society, both those are well and those that are ill, to provide for their safety. That oath has always been what guided me as a physician, but it took on an even greater meaning when I took the oath of office as your mayor 4 years ago. No one could have predicted then that we would have to face a worldwide pandemic together, but I have never forgotten my commitment to your safety above all else. 4 years ago, I, along with Councilman Sterling Stanley and Michael Spadafino, made several commitments. To date, we've been able to stabilize tax rates and kept municipal tax increases to less than 2%, under the cost of living, and this has all been accomplished while providing the services that our residents deserve. We've reestablished the East Brunswick Chamber of Commerce and brought in over 360 new businesses to the township. We've repaved over 25 miles of township roads, added bikeways and walkways, and got the state and county to kick in their fair share of repaving miles of roads. But most importantly, during this once-in-a-century pandemic, our actions have allowed East Brunswick residents to claim one of the lowest infection rates in the county. In addition, our swift action has allowed our employees to remain safe, all while keeping healthcare costs to a minimum. And finally, in a strange way, we've come together as a community to help provide for those with less and those that are the most vulnerable. We've become stronger, more united, more resilient, and more compassionate than we ever imagined, and for that I'm grateful. But for the next 4 years, let me be clear, we are laser focused. Fiscal responsibility will be a #1 concern. It will continue to be. We'll continue to keep control of taxes while providing the quality of services we deserve. We will commit to the future by continuing on our plans for smart redevelopment in any of the underperforming areas in town. This is our opportunity to increase tax revenues from these underperforming properties in order to provide for the services and the facilities that we want, and to keep long-term control over property taxes. Whether it's through we want a community build, whether it's through community policing or our organizations or youth groups, and we want to capitalize on our diversity and give a voice to everyone in East Brunswick. So let's build on our accomplishments and our resiliency and work together to make East Brunswick the great community for our children that it's been for us. So I humbly ask for your support in re-electing Councilman Sterling Stanley, Michael Spadafino, and myself for mayor.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. We will now move on to the questions aspect. First up for our reporters is Mr. Muscavage, and your first question is to Mr. Amin.
Yes, Mr. Amin, thank you for agreeing to speak tonight, and thank you to the mayor. You talked about this in your opening statement. You touched on legal battles over development issues in East Brunswick, and I know previously you talked about how you want to renegotiate the state-mandated affordable housing. There is a litigation involving East Brunswick with the Hidden Oak Woods development near Harts and Tice's Lane. That was a legal battle that East Brunswick lost, and it was paid for by taxpayer dollars. It was against the development project here in East Brunswick. If you were mayor, how would you have handled that? Would you have pursued legal action, or what would you have done?
COHA has always been around for a long time, as long as I remember. There was no developer that was willing to come into East Brunswick and build those apartments. It was on this mayor's zeal for redevelopment and to show that he is doing something. He invited those sharks in. He made promises to them. That's what brought on all these lawsuits and everything else. We need to work with the property owners up here. The property owners are not too happy right now. We have complaints from all of them. They are willing to work with us. And I do believe in affordable housing. I'm not against affordable, but for me, a definition of affordable housing is a lot different than what Mayor Cohen's is. We need affordable housing as a lower taxes so people can afford more to live up here. Yes, it is a state mandated, but I don't think East Brunswick is a destination for affordable housing. Look at what happened at the Golden Triangle. The property is still sitting, there's a lot of vacancies on that. A developer only comes in building affordable houses if there's a need for it, because they are, at the end of the day, investors up there. The East Brunswick just doesn't have the need for that kind of affordable housing. Neither can we afford to do that. First, we need to build our infrastructure. We need to make sure our schools can accommodate all those kids. There's a report out there 2 years ago that the mayor was touting that we can afford, our schools are not overcrowded. They can afford kids in there. According to a candidate statement of Todd Simmons, who's running for re-election, the schools are up to the brim. How are we going to fit in there? We need to come up with that solution first.
Thank you. Sorry, but your time is up. Dr. Cohen, you have the opportunity to respond.
Well, I think that the first thing to say is that my opponent has a clear lack of understanding about what the obligation for affordable housing was here and the entire basis by which we were forced to make a settlement for the number of units that affordable housing we would have to build over a 10-year period of time. This is a requirement that's being placed on every community in New Jersey from the courts. The court system recognizes that there's a need for people to have affordable housing. It's not Brad Cohen's definition of what affordable housing is. There's clear definitions by the state based on regions what constitutes affordable housing. A person who's becoming a new teacher in town, somebody who is a new cop. These individuals actually, based on those salaries, apply and would be accepted based on the standards that are not determined by the township for affordable housing. It gives them an opportunity to enter a community, and as they grow, they move up and that becomes available to somebody else. But the obligation to the town was given to us back in 2015 and the settlement that we were required to provide was to explain how we were and where were we going to put 315 units. No developer wants to build just affordable units. They're given the right to build 4 full-price units for every affordable unit that they build, which means that if our obligation was 315, we must build almost 1,600 units over a 10-year period of time. Sir, that's not negotiable. Our apartment ratio in town is so low that if you contested that and went to the courts to try to change that, the overwhelming likelihood is that, considering that our number was drastically lower than every other town around us, we would never win that suit. The reason that I contested those 2 particulars was Hidden Oaks, and then the other one was actually Summerhill, was because they really were not projects that met the needs of the township, and we didn't want to approve it just based on the affordable component alone.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen.
Sure.
Second question from Ms. Berzok is directed to Dr. Cohen first.
Good evening, gentlemen. Each of you has used forceful language to describe, defend, or deflate the current building in the redevelopment zone on Route 18 South between Edgar Street and Ferris Street. On the social media page, Jesal Amin for East Brunswick Mayor, Mr. Amin asked why Mayor Cohen and council members Stanley and Spadafino spent $5.5 million on a property in the redevelopment zone, which he said in his flyer that there's an estimated value of only $985,000. Why is there such a significant difference in the amount provided by both of you? Along these same lines, in an interview in the East Brunswick Patch, Mr. Amin said, "For residential development, I would prioritize single-family homes and stand up to the ghettoization of East Brunswick." In the same publication, Mr. Cohen said, "Our development projects will help revitalize vast sections of the Route 18 corridor that have fallen into blight and despair." So what will the redevelopment zone become? Ghettoized or vitalized?
Well, I think the answer to that one is crystal clear. We've decided and made a point with our last election of committing to turning around these underperforming properties that exist throughout the township. And we're laser focused on the areas that were at most risk of blight. And those included the areas on Route 18, the area by Tice's Lane. Redevelopment, by the way, doesn't only mean areas that have residential components to it. It could mean industrial as well. Any area that's not performing and providing the tax base that we rely on as a township. Unfortunately, those properties that we're talking about on Route 18 as an example are all in tax appeal right now. They are worth far less now than they were years ago, and their tax appeals go back 7 to 10 years. So doing nothing means that we will lose all those tax appeals because they are worth less. We will owe them all back money, and the difference will be picked up by taxpayers. And so leaving them in the condition that we are would mean actually tax increases to everybody. Our goal is to revitalize it and to meet, which we've done over the last 4 years with professionals from all different walks of life, planners, architects, engineers, people who really know what would work best in these areas and figured out what the highest and best use of those areas would be, and would be able to put something together that would actually revitalize, bring people back to living in East Brunswick, increase revenues to the town, increase the likelihood of higher-end retail coming here. So the idea is revitalization and providing residents an opportunity for a transit-oriented type of center that meets the needs of both younger people who would want to move here and perhaps even baby boomers who might be looking to downsize.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen.
I actually want to thank his zeal for redeveloping Route 18. The question is, I have to really question his financial acumen on doing that. He did hire a company to redevelop Route 18. The problem is, he didn't even check the finance, whether they had the financial withdrawal of doing anything. They're still looking for an equity partner. After 4 years of his mayorship. At this point, can the excess traffic be, his plan to put 700 to 800 apartments, 18 as it is like a parking lot in rush hour. Can they take that kind of traffic flow? Can our schools absorb these kind of kids? Can our property taxpayers absorb all the extra cost? We need to look at it on a different economy. The economy has changed totally in this COVID thing. It's more of service-oriented. It's more towards online stuff. It's more going towards fulfillment centers and things like that. That's what we should look at bringing out there. So that would actually bring more revenue in without overburdening our schools, our taxpayers. You know, that senior who's living on fixed income should not be deciding whether he should be paying property taxes or he should be putting food or medicine on his table.
Thank you, Mr. Mead. We will now go on to the third question. Mr. Muscavage, you may ask this to Dr. Cohen.
Yes. So right now there's a lot of stuff going on in the world. One of the big movements right now is the Black Lives Matter movement and policing. A recent state attorney general report in New Jersey found that Middlesex County had the 7th lowest body camera compliance in the state. And East Brunswick Police Department does not use body cameras, according to the state attorney general. And although Attorney General Graywall, he can't mandate the use of it, he highly recommends that police departments get on board and start wearing body cameras. Do you believe East Brunswick should wear body cameras? Why or why not? And is that economically feasible?
Thanks for that question. First of all, I do want to thank you for asking about our police. As you probably already know, we're ranked as the #1 rated police department in all of Middlesex County, and we've been doing that for the past several years. So I'm very proud of the men and women that protect us. The movement that you're talking about brought up an entire issue of community policing, as you've mentioned, and that's clearly something that has been critical to me before the present post-George Floyd issues that we've been dealing with in the media. And we've increased our community policing from at least 2 now to 5 people. They are there to help break down barriers and adversarial type of relationships that we hear about in the media as a way of trying to reduce the chances of these type of events ever happening here. One of the things that happened after the George Floyd event was that we actually sponsored a Facebook Live program with our police, myself, my police chief, and the community, and opened it for those types of questions on everything from the use of body cams to the use of force to cultural sensitivity training to all of the things that are clearly issues in the media right now. What we also became part of was the Obama pledge, which is part of the My Brother's Keeper. And we had a group of individuals in town who sat and met with our police department and learned a lot and asked many questions about not only body cams, but all of the issues that are in the news right now. We are not in a position, nor will we ever be, to defund our police. We want to support our police and give them all the tools they need to make sure that they police correctly and that they do it in a fair manner and do it in a mode that puts it as such a low risk for those type of events occurring here. And if that includes looking at body cams and any other type of safety mechanisms, that is something we will consider.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. Mr. Amin, you may respond.
I'm actually speechless. Dr. Cohen was very big in Black Lives Matter, but when the defund police came up, he was very silent. I guess he wants to build a very progressive thing for it. My experience, and I believe everybody's experience with police has been up here. They are fair, they are tough, but they are never disrespectful. I have not heard one word about any disrespect. At the end of the day, yes, certain police departments do need cameras. East Brunswick, we have to look at the economy of it. State can mandate whatever they want. They have to fund it. East Brunswick taxpayers should not be picking up a tab for something that is not a problem in East Brunswick. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Amin. Ms. Berzok, you now have a question directed at Mr. Amin.
Staying along with the police topic, each of you responded to questions from TAPinto East Brunswick regarding the importance of community policing. Both of you acknowledged a high regard, and you've just done it again, that you have for the East Brunswick Police Department, so that's not in question. However, we did have a summer that witnessed unrest and marches for equitable treatment nationwide. What are 2 initiatives, what are 2 things that the East Brunswick in community policing that you would support to further engage the police department with the people of the township?
I don't even understand that question because the police has been pretty engaged with the township. It was the police department that made sure when the COVID was full ranging, they were making sure that our seniors were not going hungry, delivering groceries. So actually I resent that kind of questioning when people are doubting, or East Brunswick police have always stepped up to the plate and helped in every emergency out there. So I don't think that question is really an appropriate question.
Okay, Dr. Cohen, you may respond.
Well, first of all, I'm a big supporter and have been all along of our men and women in blue. Community policing, as I said earlier, was something that I've always been a proud supporter of, even before the George Floyd event and the events of this past summer. Our community policing was something that we've invested in. We've actually placed more people in it because our goal has always been to increase interactions within the township, whether that's with our civics groups or our religious houses of worship. We want everybody to feel that they're safe here, including our business community, our employees that work here. All of that, of course, came to such an obvious crescendo this past pandemic because, like everyone else in town, our police did what they've always done, and they stepped up to the plate. The Blue Delivery Program, which my opponent refers to, was a great example. But the police have always been doing these type of programs. They're now looking to do a program with myself where we go from door to door and advise people about different threats and how to reduce the chances of any type of vandalism or crime or stealing. There's programs that they continue to innovate when it comes to protecting the public, and we're working actually on one right now where the police are part of a pilot study where they're going to be monitored for vital signs. And as they go through their day, what we're hoping to be able to figure out from that is to extract that scientific data and be able to figure out what areas people have strengths and weaknesses in, so that we could allocate our forces to areas where they're more likely to do a better job. And I think that's innovative and puts us really at one of the only programs in the state even doing any pilot like that. That's how we improve on an already great police department.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. Mr. Muscavage, you have a question directed to Mr. Amin.
Amin, this is a issue. It's going to be on the ballot this year, come November. Legalize marijuana. Are you in favor of marijuana? And are you in favor or opposed to zoning that prohibits the sale of marijuana in East Brunswick? Like some other towns, Old Bridge and Bridgewater passed ordinances that would prohibit the sale of marijuana. Townships can tax more than what the state townships can tax additionally what the state can tax, so East Brunswick could see revenue from marijuana sales. Are you for marijuana sales if that becomes legalized, or medical in East Brunswick?
The question is, I believe, do we become a drug dealer and profit out of it? Me personally, never smoked marijuana, no ambition of smoking marijuana. I leave it to it's on the ballot. I leave it to the people of East Brunswick. If they approve, as a mayor, I will enforce it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amin. Dr. Cohen.
I can tell you that I'm definitely in favor of medical marijuana. As a physician, I've had friends of mine who've practiced it. I have family members who've benefited from it. I personally wouldn't want to be using recreational marijuana, but like was said, I have no problem leaving it to the voters to decide. As far as the zoning in the township, we've already made accommodations in the event that came through. As you know, that was an issue about a year ago, and it never came to fruition at the state level, and now it's back now as a ballot question. Our zoning in the town limits it to a very small number of areas in industrial sections of town within a very limited distance of any houses of worship, residential properties, and main commercial highways, which in the end leaves only 2 tiny areas in town if it became legalized where it would be approved to be used here, because the goal is not to put it in any places that would endanger our children, our commercial businesses, and the people that live here.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. Ms. Berzok, you have a question? Please ask it to Dr. Cohen.
New Jersey is experiencing a spike in COVID-19 cases as we speak. As a person interested in governing a township, what have you learned from the COVID-19 pandemic that would affect decisions if you move forward as mayor? Would you communicate differently? Do people in East Brunswick need more information than they've been given on the status of the community under the virus? Would you have more flexibility in the use of indoor and outdoor space?
Well, Thanks for that question. Clearly, we're not done with the COVID pandemic right now, so it's a critical issue that we resolve. I think that one of the huge benefits for me is my medical background. It's allowed me to be able to make quick decisions that were important for this township, and I think kept us safe throughout the entire pandemic and lockdown. We were one of the first people to shut down businesses and our municipal government offices, and as a result, we enjoy one of the lowest COVID rates in the entire county, and that's been persistent throughout when you compare us to other towns that have long-term care facilities. I think that our goal had always been to make sure that we communicate completely and transparently to the electorate, to the residents, the people here who are dependent on that information. I did that through EBTV. I did that through the social media. I did that through reverse 911s, print media. So I think getting the word out on a timely basis, I don't feel residents have been behind the 8 ball, but it's not over yet. And results count, and I knew that opening was going to be trickier by far than closing. In fact, closing, I got a little kickback from, not kickback, but town Trenton was not very happy that we closed things faster than they were willing to do it, but it's made a big difference. But today we just announced that I helped put together a program with the county and the schools to do COVID testing within our schools, so that if we're going to be opening up and trying to provide that in a safe manner, and our hybrid system that the schools put out to the governor was accepted as one of the best hybrid systems for schools in the state. But we still don't do testing. We will now be a pilot center for doing COVID testing in our schools. And in order to make sure that we reduce the risk of any super spreader events and keep our kids and our faculty in school as safe as possible and try to keep them open safely for everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. Mr. Amin, you may respond.
One thing I actually have to Dr. Cohen. He did a bang-up job at it. When he wrote that letter to the governor where he shut down all the businesses and he prevented a lot of COVID from actually spreading, he is actually one of the key instruments, and I meant that as a compliment. Please take it for what it is. Okay. But in doing that, he created another crisis, what we call economic crisis. He created a big problem for the small businesses. He created a bigger problem. He keeps talking about 300 new businesses he brought in. Maybe he should also talk about how many businesses that went out, and you can see going out of business by East Brunswick Mall also. He has not done anything to protect it. He has no plan on how do we even help them. He has never advocated when the state put out a grant. He has great connections with the governor. Governor listens to him. But when the governor decided to help the small businesses by giving them grants, East Brunswick was not part of it. As a mayor, I would be screaming on the top of the lung, not worry about what party is in power. We need to look at all aspects of it. That is my, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amin. Mr. Muscavage, the question is to you. It is for Mr. Amin.
Mr. Amin, what do you think will be the biggest challenge facing East Brunswick in the next 4 years, and how do you propose to address that?
The biggest problem in East Brunswick is going to be to bring back the businesses up again, making sure our people in East Brunswick go back and get the jobs. Our kids get the jobs at the malls back again, to bring the economic vitalization of East Brunswick. I would bring my business acumen. I know what these businesses need to prosper, because I am on that side of the table. I have experience in building brand new businesses, or even rebuilding businesses that are run down, that I have bought and brought it back to life again. And I can bring my practical experience in that, in helping all these small businesses survive and make sure our property, residential property taxpayers don't get the burden of these stores getting empty up there, and the properties on Route 18 and all the businesses going out of business, that's what we need to focus on to bring the economy vitality back to East Brunswick, bring economy vitality back, bring a lot of businesses to East Brunswick. We need to send a message out there that this township is open for business. They will work with you. They will try to help you. They will make sure. The biggest problem with any business is the carrying cost. Getting through all the permits and all the process and all that stuff. We need to really streamline that, because I have been on the other side of it. So I know what the problem they are facing for it. And that will be my goal, to make sure that East Brunswick becomes more friendlier for businesses so we can take away the property tax burdens from our residents and our seniors.
Thank you, Mr. Amin. Dr. Cohen, you may respond.
Sure. Well, clearly, our number one responsibility right now has been, and we still need to get through the COVID crisis. We're still in a pandemic. We have gotten rates much lower than it was when we were in lockdown, but we're still not clear of that. That's why the testing program in the school is such a novel and important thing to be doing, so that we can open in a safe manner. And that diligence is going to hopefully pay off by allowing us to continue to open all of the other aspects of the township in a manner that keeps us safe and prevents spread of disease. The second issue that has been and always has been a resident's top issue in town is taxes. We need to keep taxes stabilized, but continue to provide the services that people want. It's a delicate balance to be able to provide both. Just today alone, I had 3 or 4 calls and letters from people that want me to do all things that were going to increase taxes, whether it's garbage twice a week or paving their road because they think theirs should have been done. The balance between services and taxes is a constant struggle. But with the smart redevelopment plans we have in place, we hopefully can bring in revenues from underperforming properties and keep taxes stabilized. That process is well along the way, despite what my opponent keeps saying, and we just need to follow that through. And then the safety of the community is always going to be my number one responsibility. Even the third graders that come up to see me regularly when we're in session and we get a chance to talk about government know that. Whether that's making sure our police forces are maintained, our fire and emergency services, our recreational facilities have to be updated and kept up to speed so that we can ensure people's safety. Our water quality has to be maintained. Those all cost money. Balancing that, keeping taxes under control, and managing to do all of that in the middle of a COVID crisis is the process we're in the middle of dealing with right now, and I think we're doing a good job of it.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. Ms. Berzok, we're up to a question for you, Dr. Cohen, or to Dr. Cohen, please.
The blast of growth in East Brunswick occurred in the 1960s and 70s, reflecting a post-World War II American dream. That's more than half a century ago. How can a suburban township like East Brunswick become energized and contemporary when some of the elements that comprise suburbia, like malls, are dimming? Consider the mall. Many small businesses and franchise restaurants that characterize a good deal of East Brunswick. What's the plan for making this a 21st century livable community?
That's a great question, Maureen. That's actually the thrust of all of what our smart redevelopment plans encompass. You're right. People came back to East Brunswick, moved here in the 50s, 60s, and early 70s as an exodus from the cities. But what happened to your children and mine more recently was a flight to cities, and they moved away from areas like suburbia. But that's all starting to change again for a multitude of reasons, whether that's because of the COVID crisis and kids now looking to move back here. But the move was happening well before that. That was happening because millennials and Generation Zs are reaching the age where they're either having children or at children that have that are school age and want to go into schools, and now all of a sudden to them, the same things that were important to us are important to them. So now they look for good schools, safe communities, commutable distances, and a community that fits all of those bills but can still allow for the urban-esque type of environment they've enjoyed in smaller cities here. You see that going on in Woodbridge, you see it going on in Livingston, it's going on in Roseland and Long Branch. What we're looking to do is to reinvent only a small part of our town to accommodate the needs of not only those people coming in, but the baby boomers who are looking to downsize. They don't want the taxes and the upkeep of their houses any longer. These are areas that can be energized, but the commercial, the retail, all has to be different. It has to fit with the needs of what they want today. Yes, it is more service-driven. Nobody wants industrial complexes on Route 18. Nobody's going to build single-family homes on Route 18. It wouldn't even be worth the development cost and the acquisition cost to do that. What we want are nice, reconstructed areas that combine a little bit of residential with commercial, a transit type of center, hotels, life that then energizes and activates a community.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. Mr. Amin, you may respond. Sorry.
Thank you for making me a doctor, which I'm not, but we have seen over and over recently the reports, a lot of companies are moving away from cities right now. I believe that has started happening since 9/11, where they have started diversifying on it. Why haven't we went after those companies and tell them, come to East Brunswick, look at our educated crowd up here, look at our excellent school system up here, look at our highways up here. It's easily done that. We need to go really after those offices and build office parks so we can create good-paying jobs, good-paying taxpayers that would take away a burden from East Brunswick residents. That's where I believe we should be focusing more on instead of more housing. What's the point of building a house when there's no job for them up here? We've seen that golden triangle. He keeps talking about we need more housing up here. Golden triangle is still not, I believe it's called Kingston. They gave a fancy name to it. All we have is a Walmart down there, and still those apartment buildings are unoccupied here. What makes you think people are interested in moving into East Brunswick, Millenniums, or anybody if there's no job for them up here? They would be really interested in moving if there's a job up there, and a good paying job for them. And that's where our focus should be.
Thank you, Mr. Amin. Mr. Muscavage, you have a question to Dr. Cohen.
Okay. Mayor, you talked about the Route 18 redevelopment project, and Mr. Amin, you talked about streamlining the process of permits and possibly developing office parks. What is the most important project you believe would be something that you want to achieve in the next 4 years? And COVID aside, talking about anything that you think would be an important thing to bring to East Brunswick that you would want to accomplish in the next 4 years?
Are you talking about the redevelopment? Is that your question?
No, any kind of project.
Okay. Well, first of all, just so I could finish the response that he made with the last statement, the redevelopment project's been going on for 4 years. We've had town halls, we've had Facebook Lives, anybody had an opportunity to be on redevelopment advisory committees. We have redevelopment agency meetings, planning boards, zoning boards. They're all open to the public. And yet, in all of those years, I've never seen you at one of them. Not one. We've had people come in and give us advice on the highest and best uses of these properties, and not one of those professionals have said that it was worth putting in commercial office space. Not one. No developer wants to build that because they're only going to build what they think they can make money on. So that sounds great, but had you actually been to any of these open meetings that you more than welcome to have attended and participated in, you would have known that. The projects that I think are most important, again, are going to be working laser focused on making sure that our redevelopment projects take underperforming properties that are a burden on taxpayers and are costing all of us to stay in the condition that they are, and turn them around, because you get a twofer from that. You turn these properties into areas that will be tax generators. You create the type of space that would bring in the type of commercial industries and businesses and retail that we all are craving to return here, and you increase the property values of the properties that are suffering right now because they're bringing themselves down by the underperforming, blighted areas that they're sitting next to. If we could turn that around into something exciting and innovative, it solves all of those problems. And in all honesty, we've got a huge jump start on that. We just need to finish it.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. Mr. Amin, you may respond.
Dr. Cohen, did you ever ask the residents of East Brunswick for their help? We have a very highly educated public in East Brunswick who work in these companies in Manhattan at good positions. They could have been our ambassadors or inviting these companies to come and set up shops. They could have sold to those companies that we have a very highly educated task force up there. For me, the most important thing is still taking away the property tax burden from our residents, from our seniors, bringing high-paying jobs back again back to East Brunswick. I understand retail, and they are dead right now, and I don't think they will come back again, ever, right? We need to look at the very different economy that COVID has generated. That's what we should be looking at. We need to have a study on that. Apartment buildings is not an answer. We still haven't been able to fill. We were sold on a golden dream of La La Land when they did the Golden Triangle. It still has, all we got was a Walmart and an apartment building that still hasn't had any occupancy on it. What makes any developer, if they do a little marketing study, he keeps talking about the experts and everybody, unless and until the mayor gave them a commitment up there where he would give them pilot programs and things like that to bring them into do these constructions up here, which the township taxpayers will end up paying for it over the years. I don't think any of these developers would be interested in coming if they even done a little bit of study. We still have those apartment buildings that are sitting empty behind Walmart. It's still not occupied at 100%, and it's been there for 10 years, 5 years, 8 years. So I'm not sure that plan really, he keeps talking about the experts and everybody else.
Thank you, Mr. Amin. Sorry, but your time has elapsed. Ms. Berzok, we have a question for Mr. Amin.
Each of you has spoken in great praise of the East Brunswick Police Department and the East Brunswick Public Schools, and rightfully so. As mayor, what is something you would prioritize as a way to support the East Brunswick Public Schools and their continued rollout during the pandemic? Our schools have been praised statewide for their quality, but it's still a difficult time, and the pandemic is still facing us. So in what way, as mayor, could you further support the East Brunswick Public Schools?
The important for East Brunswick Public School is not to overcrowd it. They are doing, right now, Dr. Velasky is doing a very good job at handling the overcrowding. The school board has also been working very hard and making sure everything is under control. And I believe the county that came up with the contact tracing program is an excellent idea, and thank you, Dr. Cohen, for initiating that. But the most important thing is COVID is not going to go away. It really is not. That's going to be like influenza. We are in that economy. We are in that atmosphere. We cannot afford right now to bring all these extra kids these apartment buildings bring in. Where are we going to put it? How are we social distancing? As it is, Dr. Simmons, Mr. Simmons, Todd Simmons already put a statement out. We are already at the brim right now. Where are we going to put it? I think we really need to slow down and reevaluate our plans for East Brunswick apartment buildings and urbanization of East Brunswick.
Thank you, Mr. Amin. We are now done with our questioning portion. Oh, I'm sorry.
Alan.
Please.
Well, clearly, I came from the school board, so that's where I started my public service, was working as a member of the school board. And clearly, the commitment to our schools has been my #1 priority from the start of my entire political career. And my start as mayor has always been to make sure that they are safe. So that's why I am so proud of making such an effort to go out and went and did the research, went out and actually spoke with the Air Force Academy to try to come up with their pandemic math team's math equation to figure out how we could go about testing in a reasonable way and one that we could afford to do and provide this type of program to our students so that our students and faculty can stay safe. If we could prove that that's successful, hopefully other people that have picked the remote-only option for school may be able to safely and comfortably select moving back to the schools as an option. So I'm real proud of that, and I think that it's a pilot. We may find that it's successful, might not be successful. We might have to work with that and change some of the parameters. But the goal is the safety and to provide an opportunity for all of our children. As far as the school itself, we need to, it's parents and it's community that need to do everything that we can to support our public schools. That's why people move here. 63% of your taxes go to public schools. People have made that commitment to our schools, and we want not to do anything that's going to change the reputation of our schools. Whether or not we are at a crowded level before we even did any redevelopment, then we clearly need to start to think about our infrastructure needs for the schools. But that's an issue before we even started any redevelopment. So these are the issues that weigh heavily on the board, and I'm confident that they will do the right thing.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen, and I apologize for my error, Dr. Cohen. Now we will conclude this forum with our closing statements for the evening from each of the candidates. The order will be in reverse of our opening statements. So, Dr. Bradley Cohen, you have the first closing statement.
Thank you. It's actually just Brad. I think
Okay.
my mother thought that 2 syllables would be tough for me. So, well, despite the pandemic, financial crisis, and racial conflicts that surround us, residents here in East Brunswick have remained resolute, strong, optimistic about the future, and above all else, safe. Councilman Sterling Stanley, Michael Spadafino, and I humbly ask for your support as we continue to fulfill the promises that we made 4 years ago. Our goals are clear. Fiscal responsibility, we will continue to do the work diligently to control our expenses, provide the wide variety of services that our residents deserve, and keep control of municipal taxes. The financial markets have clearly recognized that, as our efforts have resulted in the highest possible bond ratings. Our commitment to the future, which will be achieved through smart redevelopment, the arts, our top-rated schools, our new businesses, our current businesses, and our public library, and community building as a dividend to the work that we've been doing all along, bringing people together. It didn't take a pandemic to show us the importance of community, but the COVID crisis certainly did shine a light on this core strength. By uniting our network of organizations, civic and religious groups, youth groups, councils, our dedicated municipal employees, and our community police, we've only begun to see the power of community even when there's chaos around us. Muhammad Ali once wrote, "Service to others is the rent that you pay for your room here on earth." I've always kept that in mind, as I've never forgotten that my greatest responsibility to you as mayor is to be a true public servant. So thank you for this opportunity. God bless America, and stay safe.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. Mr. Jesal Amin, you may now have your closing statement.
My plan will keep with the character of East Brunswick that we have all grown up to know and love. One of single-family homes, tree-lined streets, and a quality of life unmatched by our neighbors here in Middlesex County and across New Jersey, and also preserve our schools. No one moved to East Brunswick to live in an urban environment, or high-rise urbanization or mixed-use development proposed by Mayor will ruin East Brunswick and overburden our schools and infrastructure. As a mayor, I will focus on property taxes. The second most issue is reducing property taxes while maintaining East Brunswick top-notch level of service and quality of life. My goal is to make East Brunswick an affordable destination for families and businesses alike, and be the top town in Central Jersey. As a mayor, I pledge to stabilize the property tax on homeowners and will run. It's important to remember that not raising property taxes does not require cutting service. As a mayor, I will ensure roads are plowed when it snows, garbage is collected. Our police department continues to build relationships with our diverse community. A vote for Mayor Cohen is a vote for higher taxes. A vote for Mayor Cohen is a vote for destruction of our school system. A vote for Mayor Cohen is a vote for fiscal irresponsibility. This election is more than a party lines, whether you are Democrat, Republican, or are just not politically active. We must all come together as a town and stop allowing Mayor Cohen and his council team from destroying our town, overcrowding our school, and increasing already our high property taxes. Thank you. God bless America, and God bless East Brunswick.
Thank you, Mr. Amin. That's all that we have time for this evening. Thank you to the candidates and to the reporters for participating on EBTV's Mayoral Candidates Forum. This will be rerun on EBTV until the election and available on demand. Just go to www.ebtv.org under 2020 election programming. Election day is Tuesday, November 3rd. Polls are open from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Provisional ballots or vote-by-mail ballots only. The Middlesex County Clerk's Office will be sending to all registered voters a vote-by-mail ballot and an informational card indicating where you can vote in person via provisional ballot. You can also check the township's website under Township Clerk, Elections Information, for more information, or call 732-390-6850. Let me take a personal aside. As a person who spent 28 years teaching in this district and teaching a class that focuses on the Constitution and participation, there is nothing more important than our citizens going out and voting. This is a government of we, the people. Okay, this is our opportunity. So please, folks, be heard. Come out to vote. I'm Alan Brodman, and thank you for watching.